Hello everyone, this is Eagle Owl. In today's video, I want to go over the 4 golden rules of gun safety. To those who are not aware of what they are, if you always put these 4 rules into practice, you will not have any accidents with your gun. And the more you understand these and just kind of burn them into the head, the better off you will be. So let's get this thing started. The first rule of gun safety, and it's like, to me, it's the golden rule. It's assume, this is the one time it's good to assume. Assume that all guns are loaded. You can't rely on what status your gun was in the last time you used it, or an hour ago when you had it sitting on the shelf and walked away and ate something and came back. You can never go on your memory, or I normally keep all of them with not one in the chamber, and then you're surprised when there is one in the chamber. Always assume that they're loaded. That's number one. Now, if the gun has left your sight and then you come back to it, whether it's been out of your sight for a week or an hour or 10 minutes, if the gun has left your sight and you have come back to it and you're picking it up again, I kicked my light on, check to make sure it's unloaded. Now, obviously, you want to know if there's one in the chamber, right? Okay. Now, you could have a loaded clip and not one in the chamber, and it's in a state of being safe, but you don't know if one's in the chamber or not until you check. That's obvious. This gun was fully loaded, one in the chamber when I picked it up. That's the way I keep them all. Took the clip out. Now I'm going to rack the slide. I'm going to watch the bullet fall out. The bullet fell out. I never take one quick peek and go, I'm good. I want to be super sure. So once I take the clip out, once I pull the slide back, I visually look at the actual chamber. I look at the barrel where the bullet would sit, and I go, there's no bullet in that chamber. There's no clip in the bottom. Good to go. So that's the number one rule. Always assume guns are loaded if it has left your sight. On a side note, if you're showing someone your gun and you don't know their knowledge and their practices with guns, don't just take one, like, don't just hand them a fully loaded gun, one in the chamber, one in the clip. Here, check out my new gun you like, because you don't know what they're going to fiddle around with. If you know they're an experienced gun owner and you know that they're about it, you can just simply say, it's loaded, I got one in the chamber, check it out. You can tell them. The really best way is to just go ahead and go drop, boom, boom, check out my new gun. That's the best way. Okay, so that's number one. Number two, don't point the muzzle, which means the barrel. Don't point the barrel. Imagine you're drawing a straight line, a straight laser beam out of it. Don't point the barrel at something that you're not trying to shoot. Okay? So when you're sitting here talking to a friend, let's say this camera is my friend. Yeah, this gun is awesome. You know what I'm saying? You don't let it point at things you don't want to shoot. When you're on the range or whatnot, you hold it down to your side. You can hold it up if you want. You can hold it down to your side, but you don't make it a practice of moving around sideways this way and that way. So that one's a pretty short and simple one. Don't let the muzzle point in directions, if it was to suddenly go off, that you don't want that bullet to hit. Number three is finger off the trigger. During this whole video, at no point do you see me talking to you with my finger just like that, resting on the trigger. If you watch videos of people who are experienced gun enthusiasts, no matter what they're doing training drills, they're talking about stuff, you will always see the shooting finger, you will always see it running straight. Watch any video you want about people talking about guns. You will always see that finger straight. when they're doing practice drills. You watch policemen when they go into situations. They always go into the situation, zoom in real close. Their finger is not actually on the trigger. It isn't until they know that a threat is almost imminent that it actually goes on the trigger. So short and simple. Keep your finger off the actual trigger. If you ignore all the other gun safety rules, you cannot have an accident with your gun if you don't put your finger on that trigger and pull the trigger back. It's that simple. That trigger should never be pulled back until you're actually pointing at the thing that you want to shoot, and then you pull the trigger back. It's that simple. Now this last one is a little bit more complex, and you gotta have a little bit more insight and really put some thought into this. It's identify your target and the background. Okay, so let me explain this one, because this one is the one that really needs a lot more going into detail. You're setting up paper targets somewhere, okay, and you decide you want to shoot them. You have to ask yourself, once again, let's say the camera is the target, the paper targets I'm shooting at. As you're aiming it, you have to ask yourself, because you can be off, the gun can flinch a lot, you have to tell yourself, if I was to miss that target by a pretty decent amount in any direction, all the way around it, if I accidentally shoot, let's say I miss my paper target, and we're thinking in terms of 300, 400, 500 yards behind the paper target. If I was to miss that target and the bullet was to go 10, 20, 30 feet higher in the background than that paper target, what would it hit? What would it hit to the right, to the left, to the bottom, to the top? You got to draw an image in your mind all the way around that target. What things are in the view of that target should you not only miss by a little bit, but miss by a lot? If you're sitting here shooting at a paper target on a little mound, and you're shooting, and then you raise that gun up a few more degrees, and you look and you go, oh, it's not even close to the target, I would have to miss by a lot. But if I was to miss by a lot, and I hold the gun this high instead of here, that's a house. There's a house behind the paper target. Oh, it's another 2,000 yards, but I can see a house in the background. Or, oh, there's actually a street. There's actually a street behind the target I'm shooting at. I would have to be more than a little bit off, but if I'm more than a little bit off, it's going to go on a street. So, whatever you're shooting at, it has to be surrounded on all sides by a pretty good amount of nothing risky. A lot of people don't think about that. They'll be out in the woods target shooting, and right over the ridge is, like I said, someone's house or a field that they own or whatever. So you got to really be aware of what's all the way around it. So it's identify your target and the background. Now also, that just goes to target shooting, but the part about identify your target also means, depending on the situation, whether you're hunting or it's self-defense, don't be kind of doubtful of what you're about ready to pull the trigger on. You might think you could be hunting and think you're about to pull a trigger on a certain animal because you see what looks like a big brown clump of fur moving. You can't see it real clear. It's a foggy day, but yeah, you think that's a deer, but you can't really fully tell. All you know is you see a lot of fur, and you pull the trigger. You're going to end up hitting something that isn't what you thought it was. Same thing with self-defense. You could see movement somewhere. Some idiots that should never own a gun, you can see movement somewhere and go, oh, they're in my backyard. There's movement. Bam, bam, bam. First of all, you don't know if they're a threat. You don't know why they are there. Their kid could have been playing ball in their own backyard and it went over the fence, and they could just be going to retrieve it. So you can't just say, oh, there's movement, boom. You got to be sure of the thing that you're getting ready to pull the trigger on. So it's called identifying your target. So those are the 4 golden rules of gun safety. A lot of times you can break one of those. Now don't misinterpret what I'm saying. I'm not saying you should and you're always good to go. But sometimes you can break one of those 4 rules, and because you're adhering to the other 3, you might still end up being all right, but don't assume that. So anyway, those are the 4. Always assume guns are loaded until proven otherwise. Until proven otherwise. In this case, it's like guilty till proven innocent. Always assume your gun is loaded. Number 2, don't point the muzzle at things that you are not trying to shoot. Number 3, finger stays off the trigger. And for me, finger stays off the trigger. That is like the golden rule. And all the others follow it. It's impossible to shoot something if you're not pulling the trigger. Okay? You can ignore all the other gun rules. If you're not squeezing the trigger, you're not shooting anything. And number 4, identify your target successfully and the background around it. So, this is Eagle Owl. I commonly make videos on firearms, emergency preparedness, and workout training, exercise, strength training, sometimes social type topics. Hit the subscribe button, and thanks for watching.